Return now to our Powerhouse roundtable, Donna, Brazile, and Christie. We were expecting a red wave tonight. It didn't happen. Why not?
Historically, parties in power loses seats, and we knew that there was a significant headwind. Biden wanted this to be a choice, not a referendum. He knew that if Democratic candidates go out there, make the case, demonstrate that they are listening to the American people, they heard their complaints about inflation, he knew that this could be a better day and better night. What you saw across the country, of course, was that Democrats holding their own. We lost some ground, but we also picked up some ground. And while all of the votes are not in, Democrats tonight are probably breathing a sigh of relief.
And Chris, you were cautious all evening about this whole red wave thing, but you still think there's some good signs there for the Republican Party.
Well, sure. Look, it depends on how it all turns out, right, Byron? I mean, I think if it turns out that we take the majority in the House, and then on December 5th, now that we know we're going to have a runoff in Georgia, if majority is at stake there and we win that, then it's a successful night. And the other thing you have to factor into this is we did win 20 seats in 2020. And so the ability to be able to pick up 40 or 50 seats was probably never on the table. But all that being said, it still is a disappointment for Republicans that we didn't win some of those seats. The biggest cause for the disappointment are the Donald Trump endorsed candidates, because they pretty universally did poorly tonight.
I want to get back to Trump a little later, but Chris, you and I talked a couple of days ago about the potential of a runoff in Georgia, and you were saying that if it depends on who controls the Senate, Republicans will be all in. If they've already won it or lost the Senate, then Herschel Walker's on his own. Yeah,
I think it's a much tougher race for Herschel if all the chips aren't at the center of the table, right? So if let's say we've got Nevada, Wisconsin left still to decide. If Republicans don't win both of those, then control's not going to be at stake in Georgia.
What do you say? You know Georgia, you know Warnock. He has a strong ground game in Georgia.
You know, that was the first state I won statewide when I was a young organizer, so I know it very, very well. But here's what I do know. In the state of Georgia, from November 3rd to January 5th, Democrats increased the percentage of people voting because they went out and they knocked on the doors of people who did not vote in the 2020 election on November 3rd, and they got them out on January 5th. The question is, who are the voters that did not come out today? Who failed to vote? And will they be able to target those voters? And if you look at the map, there's some room that Raphael Warnock, he can grow in the metro Atlanta area. Turnout was down 3% versus what we saw in 2018 and also in 2020. He can also grow with minority voters. I mean, Black, Latino, Asian Americans. The question I have tonight is whether or not Stacey Abrams, who put together that big ground operation, will be back at the table to bring her team out. And likewise, the question I have is, will Governor Kemp send all of his troops or all of his volunteers out to help Riverwalk? It's going to be a ground operation. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Yeah. This is not about dropping another $5 or $10 million. And here's
the other thing. The other factor is, we saw this near the end of the night tonight. The Libertarian candidate got 80,000 votes. Yeah. Okay, so are those people going to vote? And if they're going to vote, who are they going to vote for? Now, if you look at it just ideologically, you would assume that a good chunk of those voters, a majority or more, would be Walker voters if they're libertarians. Although they may have voted for the Libertarian as a protest vote against Herschel Walker. So we don't know. So those 80,000 voters are in play, the ones who did vote, but now their candidate's not there. And then the other thing that's at play is going to be, who does Kemp decide that it is in his interests to fully get behind Herschel Walker now that he's been reelected as governor? And it's going to be interesting to see what Governor Kemp does.
As my late grandmother would say, he's treated Herschel Walker with long-handled spoon up to this point. So be curious to see if you... Last question, close out on this.
Let me add something to that, though. Let's remember this. When Herschel Walker was asked in the primary, was he voting for Brian Kemp or David Perdue? He said, I'm not voting for either. Now, let me just tell you, as somebody who was an incumbent governor, when you're running for re-election and somebody says they're not sure they're going to vote for you in a primary, that's not something you forget.
I'm from Baltimore. I know we're petty. It sounds like politicians can be petty as well.
Yeah.
Let's end on this. Donald Trump. Yes. He was on the ballot in many states. It would seem at this point it was not a good night for our former president.
Well, let me just say this. He had the pick of the litter when it came down to choosing candidates across the country. And as you well know, he picked a lot of the congressional candidates, a lot of the federal, but he did not pick a lot of the state candidates. So Republican governors, by and large, did far better than some of the senatorial candidates. Here's the point with Donald Trump. Is Donald Trump a driver or is he a chaser? Is he going to drive people away from the Republican Party, like independents and independent-leaning women, suburban women, or will people start chasing him?
Go, got 10 seconds.
It wasn't a good night for Donald Trump. And whether he wants to admit it or not, which he won't, it was a bad night for him, and Republicans got a choice. Party of me or the party of us?
You both are on GMA in the morning, so sleep fast. We're so grateful.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.